Hi, everyone. Welcome to the EC. My name is Sarah Curtis, and I'm the Community Program Coordinator at the EC. I want to thank you all for coming out on this Friday. Rocket Pitch is one of the many events that we offer here at the Entrepreneurship Center, and it's all a part of our mission to help students learn and apply entrepreneurial thinking. One of the most important aspects of a rocket pitch is you. So as the audience, you all have an opportunity to play a part today, whether that's cheering on the pitchers, providing feedback, voting, or just turning on your camera and showing a friendly face. So I'm really glad you all came out here. And if you're new to the EC or it's your first time watching Rocket Pitch, welcome. We love seeing new faces. That's what we're all about here. And if you're not a member, don't worry. The sign up is super easy. So we'll drop the form in the chat. All you have to do is fill that out and you can become a member. So before we get started, let's make sure that you're eligible to vote. We'll review how it works, and then we'll thank our wonderful sponsors. So in terms of voting, you're only eligible to vote if you're a member or a coach. So again, if you're not a member yet, all you have to do is sign up for that, and then you'll be able to vote. And the voting form will be dropped in the chat. So all you have to do is complete that before we start our feedback portion. So I think it's always a good idea to leave it open, and as the pitches are going through, you can kind of start to fill out that voting form so it's not so much to do at the end. So yeah, that link will be in the chat, and it's always a good idea to just keep that open. So now that you can vote, let's review how it works. So participants will have 2 minutes to pitch their idea with the following 4 pillars. So these are the 4 aspects of a good rocket pitch that we always like to go by, with the first one being the problem, which is the idea that great products solve great problems. Then we always talk about the market, and this is where you keep in mind the outreach. So how many people are involved, how many people are affected. Then we go into current solutions, and this is where you would want to evaluate your competition and tell us why your solution is better. And then going into that, your solution. So telling us your idea, what you've done so far, and what's to come. And lastly, we always like to talk about delivery. So if the pitch was delivered in an engaging way to the audience. Also, keep in mind, this is a competition, so I will mute you if you go over that time. There will be a prize at the end for the winner, which is pretty cool, but what I love about Rocket Pitch is really how it's all about entrepreneurship. So this goes beyond the $100. Even if you're just an audience member today, take this opportunity to develop new ideas and learn from others. Speaking of learning from others, we have some awesome people with us here today. Ultimately, this can only happen with great people, our sponsors and our coaches. So first and foremost, thank you to Ferguson for making this all possible. We would not be here today without them. And I also want to thank the coaches and mentors who are joining us today. I think I see Tim Murray, Mike Desher, Michelle King, Chris McCoy, Karen Connor. If I missed anyone, feel free to introduce yourself now. But thank you all for being here. All right, so I think we're good to go. Let's get ready to rock it. And again, for the pitchers, I will announce your name for you so you do not have to include that into your pitch. So first up, we're going to start with Daniel Slipachev. He's a physics major, he's a senior, and he will be talking to us about the AIVL. So Daniel, whenever you're ready, you can get started and I will begin your timer.
More than 50 million intubations occur globally, and this data does not include intubations during emergency medicine or during the COVID-19 pandemic. Intubation is a medical procedure where doctors sedate patients and then insert a tube to provide oxygen. Patients trust their doctors to intubate them properly in a do or die situation. And our product, the AI video laryngoscope, or AIVL, can alleviate those worries. The laryngoscope was invented nearly a century ago, and that competitive market has grown into a $148 million a year industry. The first laryngoscopes only provided a 68% success rate, and around 25 years ago, the video laryngoscope added an LED and a camera to the tip of the blade, increasing success rates to around 85%, but that's at a best case scenario. While other video laryngoscopes exist on the market with their own pros and cons, our video laryngoscope has a unique trait that will advance the market: AI. Everyone knows how self-driving cars are changing the automobile industry with the ability to detect objects and even park themselves. Our video laryngoscope will also be able to detect key regions of the throat, allowing doctors to have more confidence and increase the success rate from an unreliable 85% to a consistent 90%. We have teamed up with 2 medical schools and a local fire department to gain sufficient data to improve and train our AI model. Once ready, we will sell our AIVL to paramedics, hospitals, and medical schools to help train future doctors. Our cloud subscription will record and save all operations to improve training and for insurance purposes. With our AIVL, we are about to revolutionize the next generation of laryngoscopes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniel, for that great pitch. So we're just going to move right on into the next one. So next we have a pitch from a group. So we have Katie, who's a geology major and a junior, Jack, who's an anthropology major and a senior, Alexander, who's a finance major and a junior, and they will be talking to us about Climb On. So whenever you guys are ready, you can go ahead and I'll start your timer.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna share my screen really quick. Here we are. All right, Climb On. Ready to go?
Yeah, all right. Rock climbing. It's a sport that encompasses the great outdoors, can be enjoyed with family and friends, and serves as a great physical outlet. But more than anything, it allows for a community supportive like no other. But it can be hard to know just where to start. Climbing means traveling to unique and remote locations, and it can be really confusing to figure out routes and nearby accommodations. Oftentimes, these kind of hurdles keep beginners and people new to the sport from ever trying.
So our market is double-sided, as not only will we be working with the rock climbing community directly to help them find and share the perfect rock climbing adventure, but we'll also be working side by side with the rural underdeveloped communities, as you can see in the second picture, that may have relied on industries that have moved away, such as coal or other fossil fuel related industries. We seek to attract rock climbing related tourism and spending in the local restaurants and hospitality.
So on one side, impoverished rural communities need jobs to retain and attract the working age population. According to the Population Reference Bureau, Appalachia, for example, has seen a dramatic drop in working age population over the past decade as people move away looking for jobs. On the other hand, rock climbers need a way to put together an authentic rock climbing experience. Mountain Project, the main resource people use to plan expeditions, is full of data, but it's not particularly user-friendly, and it can take days for people to put together enough information for a trip. There's also a minimal amount of information about the communities around the climbing sites.
So that's where Climb In comes into play. We will create an app interface that will optimize the rock climbing planning experience, providing an easy to follow source of information with locations, specific routes, and an authentic local experience that reflects the user's values and preferences. Climbers will be connected with local businesses around the area, effectively bolstering these businesses as well as their local economies. Thank you. We are Climb On.
Woo!
Awesome, guys. Thank you for that pitch. So we're going to move into the last one. Today is another, so it's going to be a pair. So we have Taylor Robertson, who's a finance major, who's a sophomore, Stavon Baca, who's a finance major and a junior, and they will be talking to us about Spellcross. So whenever you guys are ready to start, you can begin, and I will start your timer.
The massive Harry Potter fandom, which has purchased over 500 million books and supported the 3rd highest grossing movie series, have abandoned J.K. Rowling. There's been a massive decline in sales in the past year and a half, as many refuse to support her. Yet, they still all want to be witches and wizards, just not her witches and wizards. With the explosive success of Pokemon Go and less so, Wizards Unite, with augmented reality catching of creatures superimposed upon camera imaging of the real world, there's a space in the market for a non-Harry Potter app that uses augmented reality to allow users to actually interact with each other, duel each other, not random creatures.
Now, you'll notice my Zoom background. Zoom can tell what is me and what is not. And if you pull your phone camera, it can also easily identify faces. We believe the technology exists now for an app that I've wanted ever since childhood, a dueling app for wannabe witches and wizards that will finally let our spells cross.
Our idea for Spellcross is simple. You and your partner face each other around 15 feet away. Your back-facing cameras are both enabled, allowing both the camera and you to see your environment and your opponent shown on the screen. The app will recognize the other person and will let you know if you're not in a good location to duel. Then begins with a game of spellcasting that relies on your knowledge of spells' physical motions and incantations. Drag your fingers along the screen in arrangements that are specific to fire spells, ice spells, wind spells, or even summon birds to attack your opponent, all superimposed and shown visually with augmented reality.
You'll even get the ability to dodge, although some spells will be area of effect and less powerful and still damage you no matter how far you do dodge. The physical boundaries of your duel will be set, and you can't cast outside the circle or cast spells at your opponent unless you're facing them as well. Train to become faster spellcasters, making your opponent's attempts to dodge less effective. There is no app like it.
The app would rely on a freemium model to boost witches and wizards' abilities, buy special items, spells, and pets, and could also see future expansion into merchandise with Bluetooth-enabled wands for another way to cast for dedicated witches and wizards. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys for that great pitch. I want to thank everyone for those pitches today. That was like a really great lineup. So now we're going to take a quick breather to allow time for you to complete your voting forms. So again, the link for that is in the chat. And when we come back, we will move into our feedback portion. So you can start to think of any questions or comments you may have for the pitchers. And when we come back, we will discuss them. So take a few minutes, complete that voting form, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, welcome back. If you've not taken the chance to vote yet, I encourage you to do so now because we will be closing the voting form within the next few minutes. I'm super excited to move on to our feedback portion, and we're going to be continuing with the same format we used last week. So for those of you who were not here, this is a spin on what we've been doing earlier in the semester, so let me just take a few minutes to explain that. So I will be calling on coaches to speak for each pillar, and when I say each pillar, you can also discuss each pitch within that pillar. So I also want to invite audience members and any other coaches to give feedback. So if you're an audience member and you have something to say, you can private chat me and I will say that out to the group. But if you are a coach, I will call on you and you can unmute yourself and speak out loud for that designated pillar. So also, if you are private chatting me in the message, just make sure to include which pillar you're addressing so I can ask it at the appropriate time. So again, we will be opening up discussion for any of our pitches, and we'll just go with each designated pillar. So again, it's important we keep in mind the aspects of a good rocket pitch. So going back to those pillars, let's first address any feedback relating to the problem. So this all goes back to the idea that great products solve great problems. And for this one, I'd love to hear from Mike Dasher.
Okay, Sarah, thanks. Wow, I got to tell all three groups, they were phenomenal pitches. First pillar, especially, each of you took the time to explain what the problem was and clearly define it. And that was wonderful. I don't know how the judges are going to be able to judge this, to be honest, but y'all did a great job. I can't think of anything that would be different in the first pillar.
Thank you for that one. If any other coach would like to jump in about the problem, if there's anything you want to say, and if not, we'll move on to the next pillar. All right, we can move on into the market. So this is the second pillar, and this is where you want to keep in mind the outreach. So how many people are involved or affected? So for this one, I'm going to call on Chris McCoy.
All right, this is my pillar. I will declare complete ownership of this one. I really got a good sense of the market from all of you, which was really great. And I really appreciate our first and third pitches having that really quantified market, give us a really good idea of how many people were involved and how much money there was to be made. With Climb On, I wanted to ask, because I was the least aware of the market, mostly because I had trouble understanding. I mean, I think I get it, but there seemed to be there's communities that you're trying to serve, and there's the rock climbers you're trying to serve. And I'm not sure who the primary market between those two are. And I'm not sure, if the communities would actually even pay for this. And so I wasn't 100% sure how that part of it worked.
Are we allowed to respond right now?
Y'all can. I don't need too much. I was just thinking, you absolutely can. I'm just looking at having a hard time kind of figuring out the size if I have those two different groups that seem very different.
Sure. Thank you. Is this, I've never been to one of these before. Do we pass it on to somebody else to how would this work?
You're totally allowed to respond if you'd like. It's really up to you.
Okay, sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Chris. You make a really great point. And to your question about which would be the primary market, I think it would be the rock climbers. As to the sort of the scale and scope of that market, I was just looking at the statistics the other day, and I wish I had them in front of me for this. But basically, rock climbing over the past 5 years has increased exponentially, and especially during the pandemic, because it's something you can do on your own, and climbing gyms are popping up across the country. So climbing is definitely on the rise, and while it's still sort of a niche sport, it's growing and becoming more mainstream. And then the impoverished rural communities would not be paying for the app; they would simply be benefiting from the increased tourism to their, shops, restaurants, hotels, and that as well. I think I listed just a basic general statistic, but there's been an increase or a decrease in the amount of people, working age population in those regions, as the main industries like coal start to leave, and so you see more and more economically depressed communities, particularly on the East Coast.
No, that makes sense. I think you don't want to completely write off that as a market, though, because even if the communities themselves aren't paying, there's often economic development money, grant money, whether it be to improve community wellness locally, right? Sort of create new people who would come out, not necessarily just tourists that are coming out to use the rock climbing, but the people in the community to use it. And then, things like grant money, economic development, investments thing. But no, I wouldn't, you leave it wherever you want to leave it. But I was a little bit not 100% sure, but I think I am now. I think just maybe clean up that part of the pitch a little, make sure that you're, really clearly, who is this for, who's going to pay, that kind of thing, and how much are they going to pay, how many people, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
All right, if anyone else would like to jump in with some market feedback, we can do that right now. And if not, I'll move on to the next pillar.
Let me ask Jack a quick question. Jack, is this something that you're thinking in the mobile app that location services would be on? So, because climbers are always looking for the next greatest hill to climb, or is this something that you want to build for a stationary market that would not have any kind of location services?
Do you mean like using location services so that people could go on the app and find like a location and actually drive there with like a map guiding them?
Yeah, so I've got the app on my phone and I'm familiar with all the places around. I normally go climbing, and then next week I'm going to go to Arizona and go climbing just to find a spot. So now I don't know where the shops are. I don't know where the guides are. I don't know what the best routes are.
Yeah. So it would put together like the little plan for you that would include, climbing location, local restaurants, places to stay. Because what we realized through our research is that the authentic climbing experience really encapsulates more than just the wall or the rocks that you're climbing on. And so people want to know like where exactly are where's the bar to go to afterwards, hang out with friends and stuff. So you're saying, it would be a location service where you could say, I want to go climbing in Kentucky, what are the options there? And it would show you that.
So kind of like a road trippers for climbers. Okay, good idea.
So I got a message submission just asking Daniel to clarify the market size again. They were wondering if it was actually 124 million. It seems smaller than they expected.
$148 million a year. Yeah, I don't know if that came through. But yeah, it's a big market because a lot of intubations happen. It's a very common medical procedure. And
all right, I think we're good to move on to the third pillar, which again is current solution. So again, it's always important to evaluate the competition and explain why your solution is better. So for this one, I would love it if Karen Connor could give her insight on this one.
Thanks. So I think that first of all three of you did a great job. And at first, when I was thinking about the intubation, one of the things that I was thinking of was that we have an 85% success rate, and that the success rate for this particular proposal pushes it up to 90. And at first I thought, well, that's only 5%. And then I realized, okay, if I'm dying, then I want that extra 5%, which could really be a possibility if you're in a situation where you need intubation. So I thought that was relevant. as far as the current solution for the climbing, I did have a question about whether or not, and maybe it's just my lack of knowledge about this particular sport, but do you have to have permission to climb, or do you already have that worked out? Do you have guides? I'm not really sure I understand that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's a little bit different with each place, whether you're climbing in like a national park or so there's not really a good answer to explain that, but I think that would be something built into our app if there are like necessary permits you need to attain, or if it's recommended that you take a guide with you. I think that would be something we would have to further develop for sure.
Okay. And with regard to the app, the AR app, with regard to the dueling, I think that solution, I'm really intrigued by that, and the AR, and I could see where that kids now would really enjoy that, and I'm really intrigued about that, about the different ways that you could cast spells and how that might work. So I think that all three of them did a great job.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. We definitely think like it's scalable in the sense, if you started out with the app, you could maybe have 40 different spells you've programmed into it, just like a fire effect, or, like an ice shard throwing across the screen. But then, you could get more complex spells like spiders crawling up to their feet, or like, bats circling around their head, and that kind of stuff. The more complex, the more funding you have, and the more like fans you have using the app, the more you could really, personalize those spells and the effects that it puts on your friends' faces and like their body.
Thank you.
Got another audience submission. I'm just going to read it out, but they're asking, could Daniel distinguish his product further from what's on the market already?
Thank you. So what distinguishes like the laryngoscope is truly the AI. It's because, again, a lot of video laryngoscopes on the market, they have their own different techniques and like different materials that they use. For example, there's a particular brand, it disposes the entire laryngoscope to produce it at a low cost, which and then there are other that have like very high quality. But what are like the biggest unique thing about our laryngoscope is the AI, which will really help save more lives, which is amazing. And also, to address the point from the 85%, that's the best number I found for a hospital situation. But what we're really also trying to address is emergency medicine, on the field work, and because on the field intubations are a lot harder to perform, and that's what the AIs that really helped there to help is during like a very sticky situation where it's really difficult and you don't have those perfect conditions, that we can still get that 90%.
We just got another submission. So for Daniel, would this work with both oral and nasal pharyngeal?
For now, we can only do oral. That's what we're designing our laryngoscope, but in the future, we could expand to that.
All right, we're going to move into the fourth pillar, which again is your solution. So this is all about the idea, what's been done so far, and what's to come. So for this one, I would like if Tim Murray could speak.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So in terms of the current solution, Daniel, I thought you did a good job explaining the situation. One comment, you standing up, I think was kind of distracting. You were moving around a lot, but this is minor in terms of the delivery. But in terms of the solution, and I think as my colleague said, that extra 5% benefit, I think that is something, given it's a life-saving event, is very important. So on the climb on, I had some similar comments, but in terms of the market, I think there is a market there. I think you could have defined it a little bit better. In terms of the flow of the presentation, I thought you guys, since you had multiple people, actually did a good job moving back and forth within the presentation, which is not always easy to do when you have multiple people. And then in terms of the cross spell, this one was interesting because my kids were very big Harry Potter people, so I had really never thought of anything like this. So in terms of getting this into an app and creating something, I think it's very creative in terms of something that you could monetize given how kids interact today. And again, in terms of the market, it looks like it's a good opportunity. So I like the idea.
Thank you.
We're still on the solution or the,
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to jump in real quick. So with Climb On, quick question. So I know you can't talk about everything in a 2-minute pitch. With like David mentioned in the chat, it'd be great to add weather conditions, things like that. We talked at length about different stops and restaurants and places to visit. And Karen brought up a great question about legal permission to climb in those areas. Also, would this app be able to have a feature for safety, as in, if somebody's lost, that they went out climbing for the day and it's able to locate them, or give somebody an itinerary, like this is where I am? Is that in it, or thought about it, or?
We haven't yet discussed that, but I think that would be pretty easy to implement given the other aspects of the app. So I think that definitely it would be something that we would implement.
Yeah, we would definitely implement to the extent that we could, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday who's a big rock climber, and he's also deathly allergic to peanuts. And so he's terrified that he'll have some kind of situation when he's out there. And he says that the problem is that a lot of times people climb in places that don't have great reception. So they need like really specialized instruments for that, like whether it's a satellite phone or a beacon or something like that. So if this is a phone app, there's a limited amount that we could probably do, but to the extent that people are in cellular service, we would add that.
Even if they don't have that service, it could be something where this is where I am, or this is my itinerary, and it's sent out before the cell service is lost. So at least the area is smaller. So thank you. And then with Spellcross, I don't know if I missed it. Did you say with your app, it's free, but then the add-ons is where you monetize it?
Yes, the app would be following a freemium model. So the app itself would be free, but then extra added on products such as extra spells, potential for new Bluetooth wands, that's what we would primarily be monetizing.
Okay. And then have you found that there's any licensing issues possibly with it because of the connection with Harry Potter? Not that it's the same, but something to consider.
Yeah, we definitely want to not try and license anything at all. Like, the entire point is that a lot of her fan base has left her support because they don't want to provide her any monetary benefit. So we're not trying to cast Wingardium Leviosa or Avada Kedavra. We'd like to, maybe mimic some of like the, textual styles to like mimic the feel of that, that wizard and witch that's in that, like 18th century as sort of like castle with the, the robes and all of that, and the kind of like, graphical effects we'll use, but we're not trying to copy any intellectual property, because that's exactly anti-ethical to, I think, what our target market would desire here. Yeah.
So continuing to discuss this pitch, we had a submission question. So this is for the AI for Harry Potter. You mentioned there were limitations in terms of the physical locations that are apt for duels. What are these limitations? Are there any other technological barriers to this imagined user experience?
Yeah, so we chatted about this during our meeting with one of the coaches, Cody Watson. And so basically, in terms of whether or not you're in a good location or not, if for some reason your background is like the exact same color as what you're wearing, or your face, or you're really washed out in a very bright place, like those are the situations in which, like, if Zoom couldn't detect your background, probably this app would let you know you should move if you would like to duel right now. Also, we do want the capability to exist for you to duel over, like, a distance. You don't have to be in person, but in that case, instead of those visual effects being applied to like your real life body, it'd be applied to like an avatar, in like just a kind of like, little made up 3D world. And so the ability to dodge, like, you could still do that and do your spell casting motions, but the real benefit to this app is to get out, use the AR portion so you can actually see the effects of your spells on your friend. And just the app would let you know if you're not in a location that, like, light wise or space wise or color contrast wise wouldn't be workable.
We have another question. Is this planned as a cell phone outdoor AR product or a game station Call of Duty style game, or both? This is again for Taylor and Staben.
Yeah, so we would like to say that this is a little bit of both, because while the app does have the function and capability to essentially duel a person very nearby to you. You also have the ability to duel someone that's across the country, if you will, if you really want to do that. We want to give the dueling experience to anyone and everyone, despite wherever they may be. And because of that, we want to make sure that everybody is accommodated in that sense.
And it would definitely be a mobile app, in the sense like all you would need is, a regular kind of smartphone that has a back-facing camera, which is every smartphone in existence these days. And in terms of whether or not we could expand that, we do think there's realm to expand this after that. The largest target market you can reach is with a phone app. And if you wanted to take this beyond AR into VR, we could make it for Oculus or whatever. But those are like much further along steps. Like we can grasp the most market by making this a phone app. And like there's multiple different ways you could be dueling. Like we introduced the idea of merchandise with wands, because if you're tracing a physical motion that would enact casting a spell, you could also wand motion wise make the exact same 2D shape in order to send that spell across to your opponent. And it's just like you look cool if you've got a wand. So we're hoping that by allowing that functionality, if you're dueling against someone who has a wand, you're gonna be like, oh, I want to get a wand and use that with this app. But you don't need it to do so. It's just very much a flair thing if you'd like.
All right, so now we're going to move into delivery, which is our last point of discussion. So again, this is just ensuring that the pitch was delivered effectively and was engaging to the audience. So for this one, I'd love it if Michelle King could speak.
I think Mike and I were dueling there for a moment with our wands. Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Yes. So first of all, thank you very much for putting the time, effort, and energy into thinking about not only your product, but how you want to deliver it. Because you are using all of the time that we are investing here. And so that shows an ethical delivery standpoint as a presenter. So thank you all for that. And so just to give some feedback, I always recommend that you stand when possible when presenting, because in real life situations, not via Zoom, you're going to have to do that. Now, whether you're standing or sitting, you still have this energy and it's going to come out. So if you're sitting, you're still probably going to rock a little bit, or if you're standing, Daniel, you had a little bit of movement. But the thing with that, you all had good energy. And so I think that enthusiasm came out in that. So thank you for that, Daniel. And standing in that moment there as well. And with Spellcross, I think Climb On and Spellcross, whenever you do group presentations, it's tricky, especially in 2 minutes. So you have to rehearse that. And I could tell that you practice. I can tell that you put that work into it. With Spellcast, it kind of felt like that duel was going on as well. It was mentioned earlier. And so I could tell you practice that back and forth, well rehearsed. So good job on that. With Climb On, again, I could tell that you practiced. I would just be careful with how many in your group would be presenting. And let's see, with Climb On, this is a learning moment. Okay, this is all feedback to help. So if you could you screen share your slides real quick with me, with everybody? All right, so go ahead to the second or third one, perhaps. Or maybe the third was, okay, right here. Who had this one? Whoever was speaking.
That was me.
Okay, so do me a favor. I'm going to tell you what the audience is doing while you're speaking, okay? All right, and keep going no matter what I do.
Do you want me to say my
Yeah,
part?
say your line and keep going no matter what I do, okay? Go ahead.
Hang on. I texted it to myself. Let's see. Okay. So on one side.
Damn, Sandra. Keep going.
On one side, impoverished rural
communities. Wow, 3,900.
Working age population.
Okay.
According
So
to the Population Reference Bureau.
Okay, so you get my point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So visual aids can help if you use them properly, and they can be effective, but you don't want to put so much on there that it's competing with what you're delivering.
Right, right.
So yes, you can put text up there, but keep it very minimal. Visuals could help best if they're images, that's great. But that's just a little bit of feedback there with the delivery.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
It's funny, I think you're right. And the way I was trying to use that was like, it's so, there's so much information, it's hard to actually read through. But for the presentation, obviously it was too much for people to, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Again, thank you all very much. Wonderful pitches today.
All right, last call for any feedback. And if not, we will move on.
I can throw in something just really small in the presentations, and I think we touched on this last couple of weeks too. When we do Rocket Pitch in person, you don't have notes, and so there is, I think, sometimes we're falling back a little too much on reading, and I watch people's eyes when they give these because you can kind of see the darts, and that's okay to have a couple of bullet points, but when it seems like you're reading, then I think you're losing, at least from my point of view, some of the kind of break with the audience a little bit. And that's where, the camera for me is right here, and I try as hard as I can to look at the camera. But if I have notes, then I'm always going to be down here, which I'm not making that kind of eye contact. So I think just be careful with notes. And I think Michelle had brought that up a couple of times for the last two. So I'm not original on that, but.
So thank you everyone for that great feedback. I know you're all anxious to hear the results of the competition, but before we do so, I just want to mention a few things. So again, or not again, but we're going to be dropping a check-in form in the chat. So if you want to earn points for liftoff, just fill that out. And again, liftoff is just the semester-wide game that we hold, and you can earn points from coming to events. So a few other things I want to mention is our podcast that we release on Tuesdays, our Alumni Founders Series, which is every other Thursday at 5:30. There was a great event last night, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And of course, Rocket Pitch every Friday at 2 p.m. Again, thank you all for being here, and looking forward to another one next week. And I still want to encourage you all to check out our Discord if you haven't already. It's a great way to continue the conversation, and there's a lot of cool features on there. We also have our Rocket Connect every Tuesday that we started just a couple weeks ago, and it's been a great way to just get to know members, talk about your ideas in a more chill format, and this is all on the Discord voice channel. So it's very laid back, really fun, and it's a great way to connect. I also want to mention the game leaderboard and just some updates with that for liftoff. So in terms of that, looking at the leaderboard, first place we have Pietro Marino, then we have Taylor Robertson, then we have Yijing Li, then we have Abdi Hassan, and then we have Augustin O'Connell. And then in terms of the house leaderboard, in the lead we have Columba, and the second we have Lyra, and third we have Aquila, and then fourth we have Gemini. And just going through that with the points, house 2, which is Columba, has 10,600 points. Lyra has 10,200 points. Aquila has 7,200 points, and Gemini has 5,500 points. And for the leaderboard, Pietro has 2,700, Taylor has 2,200, Yijing has 1,700, Abdi has 1,300, and Augustin has 1,300. So these numbers are really great to see. I love seeing these points rack up, and it's really exciting to see them go up each week. So keep up the great work. So now what you've all been waiting for, the winner of Rocket Pitch today is pitch number 1, Daniel. So congratulations. And just make sure to stick around at the end to get your prize. So if you enjoyed today and you have an idea, Rocket Pitch is the perfect opportunity to share it and get great feedback. Thank you for joining us today, and see you all next week to launch into some more brilliant ideas. Have a great weekend.